Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Joy's Fashion World. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make this beautiful style you are seeing, and these are my clients. They came for their first fitting, and this is going to be the part 1 of this tutorial. I'll be dropping the part 2 soon. And in this tutorial, you'll be learning how to make hip padding with no pattern and no electricity. If this is what you want, watch to the end. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back, and if you're new here, please kindly join the family by subscribing, like and comment. So let's get started. First, we'll start with the cutting of the fabric, and my fabric is on fold and the wideness is 18 inches. Next is to insert her full length measurement, and her full length is a full tip. So I just went ahead and placed the tip on my fabric, and I mark her half length, which is 18 inches, and that 18 inches will serve as our starting line, and it's also going to serve as the waistline. So from the waistline, I went down with 10 inches, which is her hip line, and I chalk it down. So from the 10 inches, I also went down with 18 inches, that is her new line, and I also chalk it down. So below the knee line, I went down with 3 more inches, and I also chalk it down. So from that waistline, I went up with 8 inches, that is for the front infant, and that's the waistline, the hip line, the knee line, and the 3 inches extended line. So next is to insert her body measurement, and her waist is 39 inches, divided by 4 is 9.75 plus 1.5 seam allowance. So whatever I got there, I also mark it on the extended 8 inches line, and I connect with a straight line. So for her hip measurement, her hip circumference is 7 inches, so plus extra 2 inches because of the hip padding, which makes it 49 divided by 4 is 12.25 plus 1.5 seam allowance. So that's what I chalked there. So whatever we got on the hip line, we minus 1.5 inches, and I place it on the knee line, and what I got on the knee line, I minus 1 inches, and I place it on the extended 3 inches, after which I connect those points together. And from that point, I connected it to the edge of the fabric, which is 18 inches. Like I said earlier, my fabric is on fold by 18 inches. So from that 3 inches extended line, I just connect it with a straight line down to the 18 inches, after which I cut it out. So we'll be using the front to cut out the back. So just look at where I'm cutting. It's very simple. So this is it after cutting. This is what it's looking like. So we'll be using it to cut the back. So this is the fabric. I went ahead and placed the front piece on it, and I make sure I adjust everything, I align everything together. And for the back piece, I went ahead and extended with 5 inches, that is from the center front, and I folded the extended 8 inches. That is because the ruffle effect is older in the front. So next is to extend the hip line and the knee line, after which I mark 1.5 inches, that is from the center front, for our zipper allowance. I mark it from the waistline to the knee line, and I chalk it down, after which I just connect from the knee line with a slant line to have that mermaid effect. After connecting, that's all for the back piece. Next is to cut it out. So you cut through the waistline, and then you cut exactly the side. You just trace the front exactly, and then you cut the zipper allowance. So after cutting it out, this is what it's looking like, and I went ahead and notched the knee line, and I also notched the zip allowance. This is to help me indicate it when I'm sewing. After which I opened up the front piece, and I went down with 6 inches from the waistline, and I mark it down, and I also mark the midpoint of the front piece. So after that, I take away the back piece, I open the front piece, and I mark from that point, the starting point, to where I will sew my elastic to, which is 18 inches, and so I'll be sewing elastic on those points, after which this is what it will be looking like. Next is to cut the lining, and this is the lining piece. So I went ahead and marked my hip line, which is 10 inches. Whatever you mark on your fabric, that's what you'll be using on the lining. I also mark my knee line of 18 inches and I track it down and I connect them with a straight line. So next is to insert her body measurement. Her waist is 39 inches divided by 4, which is 9.75. I track it down with 1.5 seam allowance. What seam allowance you use on the fabric is the same thing you'll be using. So on the hip line, I use her normal hip circumference. You remember on the fabric we added 2 inches, but on this line you'll be using the normal hip circumference divided by 4 plus your 1.5 sewing inch allowance. So what I got on the hip line, I minus 1.5 and I place it on the knee line. After which you connect your points together. So you have to connect the point differently, your body measurement and the allowance. So that's what I'm doing. You connect it separately. After which you cut it out. Next is the drafting of the hip padding. This is where the magic begins. You don't need a pattern, so just take a look at what I will be doing. And on the waistline you will come down with 1.5 inches, and on the hip line, that is starting from your measurement, not the seam allowance, you come in with 5 inches, and on the knee line you come up with 2 inches. I'll do that again. On the waistline you come down with 1.5 inch. On the hip, aside the seam allowance, you come in with 5 inch, and on the knee line you come up with 2 inches. After which you connect the points together from the nail to the hip and to the waistline. So you just connect it, and our shape for our hip padding is foam, that is for the front part. After which we'll be using it to cut out the back. So this is the back, and I place the front piece on it, leaving 1.5 inch for the zip allowance. That is what I left for the front piece, for the back piece of my fabric, 1.5 inch, and I connect it with a straight line. I connect the 1.5 inch with a straight line. After which, next is to cut it out. So you just cut it that way. If there's anything you don't understand, you can take it back and then watch again. And if you have any question, you can ask me in the comment section. So that is it. After it, I took out the front piece and I'll be replacing my 1.5 seam allowance. Next is to draft the shape for the hip pad. So from the waistline I came down with 1.5 inches and also went ahead to mark my hip line of 10 inches and I mark it down. After which I connect those points with a straight line. So on the hip line I came in with 1 inch aside the zipper allowance, and on the knee line I came up with 2 inches. Next is to insert your underbutt measurement. So you take the measurement of your client, her underbutt, that is from the waist to the underbutt, and my client's underbutt is 14 inches and I mark it down. So on the underbutt line I came in with 4 inches, that is aside the seam allowance. I will take that again. On the waistline I came down with 1.5 inch. On the hip line aside the zip allowance I came in with 1 inch. On the knee line I came up with 2 inch and I mark her underbutt of 14 inches, and on the underbutt line I came in with 4 inches, and I changed it to 5 inches. You can see, so I just mark it at 5 inches. After which is to connect the points together. So if you're benefiting from this video, please kindly subscribe to my channel, like and comment so that YouTube can recommend these videos to others. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Is this helpful or not? So don't forget to click on the notification bell to get notified when I'll be dropping the part 2 of this tutorial. Next is to just curve it on the hip line. You just curve it slightly. After which you'll thicken the lines. Next is to just thick the line. I'll be using it to cut out the form. This is the form I'll be using. It's a 1/2 inch form. Next is to place the back piece on the form. You place it, make sure the chalk line, everything is in place. After which you transfer the chalk to the form by gently hitting on the lining. After successfully transferring the chalk, you remove your back piece, your lining, and this is it. You can see the chalk have been transferred. Next is to cut it out. After cutting it out, so I place it back on the lining to check if what I cut out was correct, and it was correct. So next is to just indicate the up and the down. You can see everything is okay, so just indicate your up and down, which is very important so you don't mess it up. and I use it to cut out the second form for the back piece. So you just cut it exactly the same, don't add, don't minus, you just cut it the same thing. After which you also indicate your up and your down. Next is to work on the front piece, and this is the lining. So I went ahead and took the lines. So just take a look at the lines I'm drawing, you just stick it with your chalk. After which you place it on the form and you transfer the chalk by gently hitting on the lining. So this is me placing it on the form. Make sure that the chalk line is on the form properly, then you transfer the chalk on it. After transfer, this is it. You can see the lines on the form, then you cut it out exactly. After cutting, I also place it back on the lining to check if it's correct. So I just place it back and it's correct, after which I indicate the up and the down. I also went ahead to notch the midpoint of my lining, and I'll be using it to cut out the second form. So you just place it on the form and you trace it exactly. Indicate your up and down, very important, don't forget to do that. Indicate your up and down. After which, this is what they are looking like after cutting the front and the back. And that's it. Next is to trim the form. So you trim the forms, you trim it a little all round. That's because we don't want it to be obvious when we place it on our fabric. It shouldn't be bulky, so you just trim it a little all round. So if there's anywhere you are not clear with it, you can take it back and watch again, or you ask me in the comment section. Thank you. After trimming, next is the covering and joining of the forms, and that's the part you don't need electricity. You don't have to wait for power before you can sew your hip padding. So let's get to it. So this is the paper gum I'll be using in covering the form. I don't know what you call it in your side, but here we do call it paper gum. So you place the form in between. Make sure you are placing it on the side that has the gum effect, and you stitch at the edge of the form. So you just stitch it all around. Make sure that the paper gum, you adjust it properly, it's not squeezed, and you stitch it down. After which you trim off the excesses. So this is what it's looking like. I also went ahead and did it for the next part, and this is what they are looking like. Next is to mark or indicate the up and the down. You also do same for the back form. You cover it with your paper gum. So you just place the form in between. Make sure you are placing it on the side that has the gum effect. So this is it. You place it in between and you cover it, after which you stitch around the edge of the form. And that was me stitching it all around. Make sure you adjust your paper gum. After I was done, I went ahead to trim off the excess paper gum, and that was what it was looking like. I didn't indicate it up and down, that is because I can see it, and this is what they are looking like after I was done. Next is to join the back and the front. So make sure you are placing it the upside to upside, and you stitch it with 1/2 inch. After I was done stitching it, this is what it's looking like, and I also repeat the same thing on the other side of the form. I place the front piece on the back and I stitch it with 1/2 inch, making sure I place it up to upside. So after which, this is what it's looking like. Next is the joining of the lining and the form together. So this is the lining. I place it right side to right side. Even though it doesn't have right side, I just place it the front and the back, and I mark out my 1.5 seam allowance and I stitch it down. After stitching it down, I open up the seam. I open it up and I went down with 1.5 inch for the waist from the waistline, and I chalk it down. So I place the form from that 1.5 inch I mark, and I make sure that the front is going to the front and the back is going to the back, and I stitch it down. I stitch on the seam allowance, that's the line we sewed initially, so that's where I stitch it on. Make sure you take your time and you do that. You stitch on the line and you stitch it all the way down. After which I also stitch it down on the lining. Just stitch the front piece on the lining so that it will stay in place, and you also stitch the back also. After I was done, this is what is looking on the outside. You can see our hip pad is formed nicely, and I also went ahead and did same on the other side, and this is what is looking like. Next is the joining of the fabric. So this is the fabric. First is to sew the elastic to it, and I went down with 1/2 inch from the waistline and I placed the elastic on it, and I stitch it down by dragging the elastic. So I stitch it down to that 18 inches we mark. And this is the middle part, after which I cut it out. I also stitch it on the two sides of the fabric. After you are done stitching the elastic, next is to join the front and the back piece together. So you place the back piece on it and you stitch it down with the seam allowance you left. So the seam allowance I left is 1.5 inch, so I just mark it down, and that's the knee line. So from the knee line you just connect it that way, just the way I'm doing, and you slant it down and you mark your 1.5 seam allowance all the way to the waistline, after which you sew it down. So this is me sewing it down. I started from the down part, so and I stitched along the line. After I was done stitching it, this is what it's looking like. I also went ahead to do same on the other side. I join it together, and this is what it's looking like. You can see that effect is already formed. It's formed nicely. You can see it. So next is to loose the elastic on the side. I lose it because it's no longer useful. I place it in the first place to serve as a guide in order to achieve that effect. So I lose it on both sides and leave the one in the middle. Next is the joining of the lining to fabric. So this is it. I place the lining right side to the fabric and I stitch it down. That's the zipper allowance. So I join it and I stitch it down with 1/2 inch. After which I do same on the other side. I also stitch it down. After stitching it down, you turn it inside out and you place it midpoint to midpoint as the notch, the elastic to the notch on the lining, and you stitch it down. In order to know you're on the right track, so the seam allowance, that of the lining and the fabric, should be aligning. It must be aligning so that your hip padding will not be looking funny. After which you stitch it down, you turn it to the other side and you stitch it down. After you are done, next is the shaping of the fabric. So this is it. I have to place it on the ground for clearer view. I went ahead to pin it down so that it doesn't shift when sewing. So this is what it's looking like. Next is to insert her body measurement. So her waist, on the waistline, I divide her waist by 2 inches and I place it there. So I went ahead and marked my hip line, which is 10 inches, so that I'll know where I'll be placing the hip line. So on the hip line, I place my hip circumference divided by 2, which is 47 plus 2 inches, which is 49, and I place it there, divided by 2. So on the knee line, whatever I got on the hip line, I minus 1.5 inch and I also place it there. After which I connect the points together. So from that knee line, you will just curve it and then slant it down just the way I'm doing. After which you take it to the sewing machine and sew along that line. So next is I just indicate where I will be stopping my zip allowance, which is 9 inches, and this is me on the sewing machine. You just stitch it all the way down. Next is the fixing of the crinoline. So this is the fabric and this is my crinoline. I just went ahead to lock the rough edge of the crinoline. I just use a piece to lock it down. So after which you place it on your fabric on the right side and you stitch it on the edge. So just the way I'm doing, you just place it and stitch it at the edge. After I was done, you flip it back to the wrong side and you top stitch on it. You can also use hemming gum if you don't want the stitch to be sewing. After I was done, this is what it's looking like. This is the inner part and this is the outer part, very neat. So this is the front, the upper part, and this is the ruffle, and you can see it is very neat. So thank you for watching this video to the end. Please like, comment and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next part. Bye.